wanting to know who won the Des Baker Award. But just by way of introduction, I think I would just like to say that on behalf of the three judges, that first of all we want to congratulate the team at the University of the Free State for a wonderfully choreographed, wonderfully curated Congress, which we thoroughly enjoyed, and the intention was very much, the focus very much being on dialogue, and not only did the Des Baker brief stimulate that, but I think also just the different presentations that we had been exposed to, particularly yesterday, rounded off last night after there was a museologist, where's Roger, the most extraordinary term, who actually gave us an explication on Couleras Acker by, what's his name, Jack Parrow, and then last night at the Mystic Boer, we were sort of ushered in by a contingent of Chinese who evidently now got some financial interest or commercial interest in the Mystic Boer. I just suddenly realized that I think we've come full circle probably in this extraordinary country with lots of unadulterated talent, as we've seen so wonderfully on display, particularly here with the Marion Roberts Des Baker Awards. Also, perhaps just to remind ourselves of this very coveted student design competition, which is in the memory of the executive chairman of Marion Roberts. Marion Roberts, of course, being one of the leading construction companies in the country. And it's been a most rewarding experience to be exposed to the students from the different universities, to be exposed to their creativity, their energy, their enthusiasm, and the manner in which they then responded to a brief which was all about dialogue, about designing and then ultimately building to a large scale the so-called dialogue box. And it was so enticing for us as the three judges that we still haven't stopped engaging in dialogue over these wonderful designs that the students had come up with. So the procedure is going to be quite simply that I would like to ask JC van der Merwe just to give a very brief background on the institute that he represents, for which this particular, or around which rather, this particular design brief was formulated, and then that will be followed by the citations, which will be presented by Dung, Mr. Dung, because it's got a very difficult surname to pronounce, and then finally we'll wrap the Oscar ceremony up by announcing the different winners. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Oro. I must say that on Wednesday I was blown away, and it was not by the week, and yesterday again, but I was blown away by boxes, and the boxes are still in my head. So usually, and Dong and I spoke this morning, we would say that we must think outside of the box. But now for the first time, I have to think of a box and boxes in my head. So I want to start by thanking all the students that participated in this project. Also the students that was part of the earlier part of the competition at the different campuses. I want to congratulate everyone on the job well done. And I also want to thank the organizers for including the work of the Institute in the brief of this competition. Now, the Institute for Reconciliation and Social Justice was established after the what we refer to as the Rates video, or the Rates incident. And the challenge that was put to us is to say that we have to come up with new ways and new languages to talk about race, reconciliation and social justice. But not just to talk about it, to see and to engage with the whole community in terms of how we can change, how we can do reconciliation, and how we can contribute in terms of making our society more socially just society. And that's part of our mandate. A big part of it is dialogue, and that's why this specific experience for me personally, but also for us as the Institute, was one of the most productive and meaningful experiences in the short existence of the Institute. Because I thought we had a good grip on the complexities and the challenges involved in dialogue, but I'm questioning that grip yet again now. Because if you look at the boxes and if you're in the box, the students did a brilliant job in deconstructing the concept of dialogue in a very productive manner. They were able to create a physical space that challenged you without intimidating. An inviting space, but much more than just a feel-good feeling. An honest space that disrupts, but at the same time, a safe space. A space in which thinking and doing happen at the same time. A space that encourages you to speak and to listen. And then I think the most amazing part of this experience for me was that when you enter the box disappears. And then it embodies dialogue. And the proof of the success of all of the boxes was that the three of us that were supposed to finish our conversation at 5 o'clock in the afternoon continued for quite a while afterwards, and today as well. So I really want to thank all the students. It was, well, let me first just hint and say, if you don't know what to do with the boxes, the Institute has lots of space. So keep that in mind. But I've learned that at the Institute, I've learned a hell of a lot about dialogue, and we want to thank you for that.
I wear orange glasses not because I want to be cool. You might think that. I wear orange glasses because I am insecure as an individual. The orange glasses because something becomes something that everybody look at, so that I hide behind them. So it becomes a point of conversation. I'm not going to wear them all the time. It becomes a strategy. And I think this is what for me this whole exercise was about. It was to be able, as a human being, to expose our weaknesses. It was an educational institution to encourage the students to understand that while we expose our vulnerabilities, which in this case was architecture student going out, not building architectural model, building something that they are completely insecure because it doesn't talk about building. And in public, that act of becoming, which JC also were talking, becoming mutually vulnerable is an invitation for dialogue. Who are we to assume dialogue? But we can invite, we can create a space. Our responsibility is to create a space where the choice to engage in dialogue or not exists. So hence my orange glasses. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to talk. So 1440, I'm delivering a chat, not a lecture. So come and chat with me. Let's get into it because I think we don't have much time. So, you know, like all of us was saying, is that there's no winner here. It's not about who wins. In dialogue, there's no competition. I know it might seem like, and here sounds like a copying out, but it needs to be said. Which I'm also a bit confused with which button to push here. Okay, all right. So I think what I'm going to do is just simply go through all the participants and kind of just talk about what I remember in the conversation that all the three of us had while we were going through all of them. So it was interesting because, you know, one thing that was for sure is that the box, which had a dimension, and which was approached with very much an idea of construction, but they were all give you the impression of not only a positive space, but also a negative space. You felt that. And the nice thing also was that as much as it was something to trigger an interest, curiosity, it also sort of proved to be an exercise that was also very articulate in its craft. So the details, so it all spoke about what we know and what we have learned in architecture when we were studying at school. But the language that it was presenting itself was one which was one about concept, social concept, concept of reconciliation, all of them at their heart, which was, and that was one thing that all of them sort of pointed or focused, is this idea of coming together in a way where we were either forced, and like one of them spoke about comfortably discomfort. You know, so we were forced, but also there was an option to move out of that, to be in front of each other, to confront each other, not to sweep conflict under the carpet, but to use the means of construction, of concept with construction, in order to open up, rather than to, I think it was great what you said, is that the box now is in our head. And I would extend that. The box now is in my heart, because that is what gives us, in the process and in the thrust of conversation, it gives us the ability, and again the option, to become human, and then to humanize through the notion of space making. So, I mean, I've gone completely on a tangent here. We had a plan, but so this picture, I think this is quite a nice example also. It is really a work that kind of, what they did, they really collapsed the box into one plane. And if you try and see this imaginary box, there is all of the other sides to it, but there's just one box. And what it is, it's a if I understand correctly, it is a drawing board that has been completely deconstructed. It is a drawing board. It is the architect with the orange glasses that is saying, let me explode my drawing board. And it's a drawing board that while we are drawing, we don't know what we are drawing. It's the light of the drawing takes its own very self. So that the construction of the architect itself, before we know that we can engage in space making that is about humanizing, we have to have an internal dialogue first. We have to have that inner dialogue that says to us that the power that exists between us, our practice, and the social outside needs to be something that is visited first inside. And I think that's the strength of this. I mean, it kind of made me think of the Fountainhead for some reason. So it was really an amazing, I mean, personally from my own practice, to be exposed to the School of Architecture, which has its own mandate and its own responsibilities towards building as physical edifices for its own purpose. But I think the initiative and how do you say that, bravoure, the braveness, if you can say that, of exposing itself at that level and inviting the learners to engage into something like this is very positive. And I also maybe take the opportunity to stress that I'm wearing a different hat, and that is a hat also as a creative director for the UIA conference that's coming up next year in August 2014. And the concept of the conference, as Karen and Amira will introduce later, is also very much attuned to this dialogue, to this idea of speaking to each other, to this idea of an in-between and all these things. So please come to the presentation, and I look forward to seeing you later for a chat. And now, well, the drums. Thank you.
In order to conclude the proceedings for the Des Baker Award, then I will make the announcement, and it gives me great pleasure then to announce. I think what I'll do is I'll start with the order of merit. There are two commendations that we decided to come up with. The first goes to the University of Pretoria. So if someone or the representatives of the University of Pretoria can please come to the stage to collect their certificate. Just to make the point that they've exhibited, there's still the full-scale model in the space behind. And it really is worthwhile to kind of look at a beautifully crafted, highly cerebral contribution. And I just want to make the point that we blindly adjudicated. We had no idea who was representing which institution. Just then to get that there's clarity on that. The second commendation goes to the University of Cape Town, with a beautifully crafted, equally beautifully crafted space consisting of conversation under trees, and it was really exquisitely put together. So the Cape Townians, are they here? Generous monetary prizes that the students competed for. The second prize goes to a very interesting project in that of all the projects, funnily enough, that generated most interest from the passers-by was undoubtedly a project, and I actually wanted to just show you again because would help, but I don't know how to operate this, so I'm going to go there. But point being, it was a periscope, and that you couldn't exactly see yourself in that unless you sort of manipulated, or the space was manipulated in such a way that it actually created an immense amount of intrigue, and it certainly stimulated a fascinating notion of dialogue, which was very much what the project obviously was about. So the second prize, hence, goes towards the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. Goodness, okay, then finally, the first prize is awarded for an equally beautifully crafted object, and it created a very intriguing, fascinating space, and, which was sort of paradoxically very comfortable and yet very discomfortable. And I think it was called The Discomfort of the Comfortable, or some fancy name, something to that effect. And the first prize goes to the Tshwane University of